So these are stressful ways to get started with a live stream. I don't know if this is going to Substack, but that's where we're supposed to be live streaming too. So welcome to Golden Creatives Talk. Welcome, Jennifer. So Golden Creatives Talk, this is the podcast where we talk about the journeys, insights, inspirations of Black and Brown creatives who are shaping our world through their art, their creativity, their stories. I'm your host, CT Luna. You can also call me Cynthia. And today I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by a truly multidimensional creative, Dr. Jennifer Scott, or Jennifer Elizabeth.
Makes you feel great.
Yes, let me just give a quick update on your background so you don't have to pull out all of your diplomas and certificates and accomplishments. Dr. Scott, Miss Jennifer, Dr. Jennifer, you are a remarkable individual. You have an amazing background, PhD in communication, master's degrees in journalism and education. You've spent years in academia, teaching at the university level. And then in 2021, you decided to shake things up. And so let's start there. How did you make the shift? Why did you make the shift from academia to fiction? And how did you do that?
Well, I like to say that it wasn't entirely my choice.
Okay.
Higher ed was having trouble finding a place for me. I was having trouble finding my place in higher ed as much as I loved it. And I was on that adjunct hamster wheel. For anyone who is in higher education as a professor, you know that full-time professor jobs in certain areas can be very hard to find. So I was kind of stuck on that adjunct where you're just a part-time professor, can't really break through. And at a certain point, I just had to say, I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm worth more than this. I need to find something else. So I let go of those. I let go of those positions, which meant, you know, my little tiny rice and beans money would have to come from somewhere else. And then it's the craziest thing that but probably within a month of not chasing after being an assistant professor, being a tenured professor, story ideas. And it was almost like I was 12 again, and I'm writing in my composition notebook in the 6th grade instead of paying attention in class. And story ideas just started coming to me, and I started writing them down. And all short stories, novellas, novelettes. And what ended up happening was my spark moment was I wrote a short story about a professor who was actually haunted by a film professor that she was haunted by a film that she saw that she couldn't get out of her head, and then basically drives her mad. But I pitched it to a couple of different contests, and there was a fairly big novella contest. I wish I could remember the name now, but there was a big one over the summer, and I got longlisted, which was huge because, I mean, I didn't win the main prize, but to get longlisted out of thousands of short stories, that was my moment. I said, Jennifer, you have something here. And then I just kept going and just didn't look back.
That takes a lot of courage to have that self-belief. First, to kind of realize that like you're kind of stuck in this, you know, doom loop of like trying to break through the glass ceiling, and then realizing like, okay, you know what, I need to make a change. So really cool. So I got to read one of your short stories, which you have on listed on your website. It was published by Midnight and Indigo. Was that a result? Was the favor a result of that competition entry, or was that yet another one of your short stories?
It was another short story that I had written. I wrote actually 3 I wrote 3 within like a month. That's how it's almost like all the creative juices were just trying to spill out, and we're so tired of being caught up in trying to be an academic. And but
Uh-huh.
then that story actually ended up coming up later. And I remember where I was sitting in my living room, and I had just finished a book that had talked about sisters, and it just got me thinking about sisters and sisterhood and women friendships. And then that's the idea started coming to me, and then it flowed in an afternoon. It was very short, so it
Mhm.
flowed in an afternoon, and then again, I'm on the contest publication submission circuit, which just meant I was constant. I had actually had a goal that year to say I want 100 rejections. I'm going to say, because they always say aim for 100 rejections, because what that means is that you're putting your work out there at least 100
Mhm.
times in a year. You submitted your work out for someone to say yes or no. So that was part of that 100 rejections, except that one ended up getting picked up for their horror speculative issue
Mhm.
that was, and actually I had to take a look that, yeah, I believe that was 2022. I might have to actually check. The years start blurring together a little bit at this point. So 2023, yes.
Okay. So, would you be able to read us a passage from that story?
Yes, and I'm so excited because I
Okay.
practiced, because I was like, this is actually one of the first times I think I've read any of my work out loud before. Not this moment, but just in general. But
Uh-huh.
just for a quick recap. So this is a story about two women in their 30s, Shauna and Carrie, who
Mhm.
are, when the story opens up, they're in the woods. Carrie's ahead of Shauna with a flashlight, chomping through like there's all these the woods and the crisp leaves under. As I was reading again today, I was like, this is kind of fall. This has got fall vibes to it. But
Yes, it does.
they're walking through the forest, and Shauna is behind Carrie, dragging a body that is wrapped up in a rug. And this is exactly where you meet these two women, and they used to be very close friends, and but they have since been estranged. And let's see, I wanted to pick up, because that's kind of the setting, and I like to say that just remember these are two women having a nice casual conversation. Bear in mind there is a dead body wrapped in a blanket right in front of them. So let's see. All right, they've sat down. Okay. Shauna spread wide, resting her forearms on the tops of her thighs, and caught her breath. Her hands ached so she let them dangle over her knees. She looked up at the canopy. She looked up and the canopy broke, showing just enough sky to see it in a collection of stars. Since we're reminiscent and all, Shauna said between exhales, can we speed up on some more recent events? What do you mean? Really? Shauna scoffed. I haven't heard from you in months. I know, but we do that sometimes, Carrie shrugged. We go a few months without talking. Not like this, Shauna said, the toe of her own boot drawing a circle in the dirt. I don't remember that last conversation going so well, because you had something to say about Rita. Carrie leaned forward, switching her legs to the other side away from Shauna. Rita, she repeated. If it makes you feel any better, we broke up. Carrie was grateful Shauna couldn't see her eyes widen at the news. Oh, don't act surprised. I'm not. Just nothing. You never liked her, and you saw straight through her bullshit. It just took me a little longer. I'm sorry, Carrie finally said. Don't be. You called it. She was a liar and a narcissist. I've been glad she's gone. Shauna grabbed her fingers and pushed them down to crack her knuckles. It just didn't feel good hearing all of that from you, and you had just gotten married, like you were doing any better. Carrie lifted her hands back up and twisted the engagement ring stacked on top of her wedding band around her slim finger. I didn't mean to. Rita was just so obviously not the right person for you. And you said that. Actually, you said that a lot about her, about me. Shauna paused. Willing victim. Yeah, that's what you called me. I know. Carrie scooted herself forward a bit on her uneven seat. Shauna waited a beat before breaking the tension. You know, she took all my light bulbs. A laugh burst from Carrie as though it was dying to get out. What? She took all my light bulbs, Shauna snorted. I once called her my light when we first got serious. So when she left, she said she was taking all her light with her. They both cackled, but hushed when it echoed against the nature sounds of the forest. Gosh, she was crazy, Carrie said. Yeah, truth. I'm glad she's gone. I had to buy out a whole aisle of Lowe's in Brooklyn, but still, glad she's gone. We should have celebrated. We would have if you had answered a text afterwards. Carrie pretended to recall with a dramatic cock of her head. No, it was you not answering my calls. I called you twice. Shauna shook her head. I couldn't talk to you. I was embarrassed and I was still mad. Then, I don't know. Everything got weird, but you're right. We should have celebrated. There's still time. Carrie fell silent. Was there time? The wind died down and her sniffles resounded in the darkness. Shauna reached out and massaged her shoulder. Carrie, it was an accident. It was an accident, Carrie repeated, taking another big wet inhale. I should have called the. No, Shauna snapped, giving Carrie's shoulder a pinch that shook her focus. What did I say? The ambulance and the cops would have shown up. What do you think they're gonna? What do you think they're gonna do? Seeing a white boy face down on the living room floor. You know how that looks. Carrie nodded. I know. We got to do this. Yes. Shauna looked over. Now tell me, we're getting closer. It's 100 yards up, right? And that's a little snippet.
Love it. My favorite section in the story. Well, that is the section. So many things I want to talk about, but I'm going to start with writing process. Like, what's your writing process? You kind of touched on like what inspires you, like you have these ideas, but like what is the thing that says, yeah, I need to start kind of like latching onto this idea and then tugging on it?
I'm a little bit I know the big Eat Pray Love lady Liz Gilbert's in a lot of hot waters these days, but her book Big Magic did have an impact on me, and one of the things she talks about is just that idea that never leaves you alone, and it's almost like the dream haunts you. It's a little fairy or a little ghost, whatever kind of spirit you want to imagine. So I just think of something that's hovering around and just won't let go. If I can't stop thinking about it, then I usually know I need to do something with it, and that's when I will do a lot of writing everything down. Every writer needs some type of a journal just to get down thoughts, get down exactly what. See, and I know you got one too. Like, this is what we do. And it's usually blue. I have a theory about this.
Oh, we'll get to that, but
we
continue with your process.
It's blue, it's purple. I have thoughts. But no, yeah, I have to just start jotting just down ideas and notes and whatever the central idea is. So for example, with this story, I was thinking about sisters, and then I took it out of sisters and just made them friends. And I said, we always talk about the ride or die friend, the friend who you kind of jokingly say, this is the friend I would call if I needed to hide a body. And then I said, okay, well, what happens when you get that call? And that's where that story comes from. And that's how all my stories come from. It's usually, here's an idea that I can't get rid of. And I say, okay, but what if? And then you just kind of then the story ends up answering that question. So once that kind of question gets answered in my head, or at least I know I have an idea of how I want to answer it later, I'm a plotter. I need to know how everything. I know some other people can just sit down and write, not me. I will be off in the squirrels before it ever gets finished. I have a lot of unfinished work from earlier, so I plot everything out, and then as I follow the outline, I let the story and the characters tell me what happens. So I think this one was one I plotted out mostly, but how them ending up being some of their character traits, other things, it's just stuff that as I had them having a conversation, oh, she likes this, oh, she thinks this, I'm going to make Shauna kind of look like this, and Carrie's going to be a little bit like this, and I let the characters tell me a little bit more as I flesh out the story, and then it's butt in the seat, get the dang thing written until it's done.
In an afternoon.
Yeah, that one happened. I am a fast writer. I do want to make sure I clarified that I am weird like that. I've been a fast writer my whole life. It's just something that once it starts going, I get tunnel vision, and then it flows and get it all out. But I can't remember how many words this was. I've written short stories as short as flash fiction, 1,500 words, and then others that were a novella at 20 something. Takes different times, of course, but if the idea is popping, usually gets done fast.
Okay, so I took some notes as you were explaining. You're a plotter. It sounds like you start with character, and then those characters seem to point you in the direction of a premise.
I think so. Yeah. I'd say first I start with the question, and then definitely immediately after the question is all the characters, because then the characters actually end up. I have a brief sketch of who the characters are, and that man, that dates back to elementary school when I was writing stories. I had huge notebooks just full of just character sketches, and
Mhm.
then you just kind of put everybody in and see how they all react to each other.
Very cool. Okay, I like that. The whole premise thing. So you've talked about flash fiction, you've talked about short story, which I do think this might have been under 20,000 words. You've talked about
Mm,
writing novellas. You've also written a novel or two.
yeah, or three. Oh gosh, I've written a lot. I so that's the wild
You've
part. I
got
always
manuscripts like coming out of
I
drawers.
got manuscripts coming out of my ears, working on more. It's weird because again, like I said, I grew up being a writer, loving writing, but I always said I don't have the I wouldn't have said bandwidth. I don't have the attention span to write a full length novel. I always said it's too big, it's too
Mhm.
complicated. There's pitch points and plot this, and it's got to come here and do like nah, I don't have the patience for all of that. And that was a story I told myself for years. And then again, the wildness of all of a sudden I leave academia and all this creativity floods to the surface. And I it was one of those things where I'd started reading some different genres that I don't usually read. I had a friend of mine say like you should try romance, and I kept saying romance. You mean like Fabio on the cover where he's a pirate or a duke or a cowboy, because they're always either a pirate, a duke, or a cowboy? No, thank you.
That's
But
a
she
Gen
was like,
X reference.
yeah, think yes, very much, because that was my first exposure. It was those red Harley Quinn or Harley whatever they're called
Yeah. Harlequin
novels
novel. Yeah.
that my sister-in-law used to have under the bed, and I was kind of like reading them, not really, and I read everything as a Gen X,
Yeah.
again, as a Gen X kid who's not being super, as long as you're not watching TV, you're fine. So I read
Yeah.
lots of things I shouldn't be reading. But I was just reading them, not really understanding them, and I just kind of thought, man, there's so many of these, and they just have the same cover, but a slightly different cover all the time. So I had just had no interest. But my friend had said, you haven't been reading the contemporary stuff. And so she slipped me
Mhm.
some, and I read them. I was like, oh man. And it brought me back to some of the books I used to read when I was a kid, the Sweet Valley Highs and Sweet Valley Teen and all of these, and Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley Twins. And I thought, man, I always used to love the romantic subplots of those. I wonder if I could do something like that. And it's just wild how an idea came to me. And again, plotted it all out and said, well, I'll just write up some character sketches. Okay, well, I wonder what would happen in an act one, act two. And then I thought, well, let me just break. And then suddenly I found myself with a chapter breakdown and with all the character sketches. And I got to 30 chapters and I said, let me just start writing and see what happens. What's the worst? I wasn't trying to get published. I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just writing to see what would happen. And again, I write fast. I don't know why. 5 weeks later, the first draft was done. I was upset again, and it's that thing of being an idea that haunts you. I was
Mhm.
obsessed with this idea, and I wrote it. No one had to tell me to write every day. I wrote every single day. I love to tell people I finished that novel between the hours of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. and on weekends, because I've got kids, and at the time I had a full-time job, and I
Mhm.
just wrote and wrote. And then one day I looked up and I went, this is done, and it's 100,000 words. What in the world did I just do? How did this happen? And I started talking. I sent it out to some friends, very unedited, and said, I know this is trash, but tell me, do I have something? And I sent it
Mhm.
out to a bunch of friends who I knew were big avid readers in the genre, and every last one of them said, yes, this needs work, but you have something here. You should go run with it. And I did.
And you did. So we're going to slowly transition into the topic of publishing and all of this. I guess my question is, was this one of the 100 submissions or 100 rejections exercise?
It was, yeah, and now that I think about it, and actually I thought the other day, like, "Man, I really should tally up in 2023 how many did I hit 100?" I feel like I should, I might have, and that was the goal. I said, "Let me just put it together," and then I learned about what it was to try to get traditionally published, and and as soon as and my cheap self, as soon as I found out it's free, like there's no cost. They're like, "Oh, I can query an agent for no cost." Okay, like what's the harm? No one can, and
Right.
if I fail, it's part of my 100 rejections. If I
It's a
make it,
success.
yeah, it's there's no way for this to go badly. That's what I told myself at the time. So, um, I figured out, I actually did get someone to work on my query letter for me, because I hadn't written a pitch letter. I had never written a
Mhm.
pitch letter, although I'd gotten them in the job that I'd had, so I knew some of them basics. But when she told me, "No, you also have something here," that was again another little green light on the road. And so we put it together, and I started looking for agents. And yes, I got a lot querying, as anyone knows who's trying to query for an agent. That's where a lot of your rejections will come from, because you can just cast such a wide net, especially for romance, which tons of people rep romance. You casting such a wide net, you
Mhm.
just, and immediately, obviously people are saying, "Not for me, the pacing's wrong, I don't like the characters, I don't like the setting," etc. You find out very quickly how subjective this industry is, because you can have a nice book, but someone can just say, "This just isn't for me," and that's the truth. It's just not for them, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's tons of books every day when you go to the bookstore that you bypass because it's not for you. Same thing with them. So, but yeah, about 3 months later, and another very big revision, because the book didn't still, you're always revising the book pretty much until it finally gets out there. I did land an
Mhm.
agent about a couple months later.
Well, I mean, a couple months sounds about right if we're looking at 100 rejections. My
Yeah.
my geek mind is doing like, well, that's one every 3.65 days. Or if she's insane, she'll do it like, one every day for 4 months or just under 4 months,
I
considering the occasional soccer practice or something.
Yeah, I want to say I sent out, I did. So some people, when they query agents, they do the batch, like they send it all out at once, which I personally don't
Mm,
advise, if you're doing it for the first time. But I
I
did
wouldn't
what
do
I
it
call
either.
like the trickle down method, where I put out a couple at first just to see who said what, and then every time a
Mhm.
rejection would go out, I'd send it. A rejection would come in, I'd send another one out. I'd pitch to a different agent. So I had a whole list of agents, and I probably got, oh, I should have checked my stats before I got here. I had to have at
Oh,
least
I'm
gotten over
sorry.
50 rejections, at least 50 something. I know at least I got at least a good 50 something rejections. So half of all my rejections for my quota were filled just from querying.
So, true confession, I've actually never admitted this to anybody. I can't believe I'm about to do it on a stream.
I'm
But
ready.
I
I'm ready.
actually I have drafted a manuscript of a novel as well and did the query letter. I did not do I like the whole I'm going to go for 100 rejections because getting like the exercise of reaching out to 100 different agents and getting the 100 rejection, like just getting 100 rejections is a success, right? Like it's kind of
Yep.
flipping the script of the process. So I think I got about 20 rejections, and
Not
that was
bad.
enough for me to be like, okay, I'm just gonna put this in a drawer and like maybe look at this some other later time. And then eventually I ended up getting um, work that demands a lot of writing, and so it's moved me away from the creative, the fictional writing. But you're inspiring me to maybe like look at that manuscript again and dust it off and start tinkering with it again.
Hey, you
So
want someone? I'm also a beta reader. I also love helping, and I don't even try, like, this is something that me and my author friends, we do. We trade manuscripts, we read them, we say, "Hey, this is great, work on this, do this, that, and that." And we look at each other's pitch letters. And yeah, this is also the cool part, is that you meet other authors, you write with
yeah.
them, you lament with them, you cheer with them, and you do this all together because it is, as solitary as writing is, publishing's a team sport, and you need all the support you can
Yes. Ooh, okay. You have segued beautifully into the next section. Actually, I'm still going to on to the traditional publishing topic a little bit, but I am going to bridge into being an author of color in a genre that is dominated by,
Not us.
I don't know, not people,
Not
not authors of color.
Yeah.
You know, so talk to me a little bit about that, like just being different in a genre that is very used to seeing certain profiles. And I'm actually going to maybe help kick you off. Your name is very not racially identifying.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like that serves you? Was it intentional? Do you go as your author name? Do you go by Jennifer Elizabeth, or tell me all the things that relate to race and publishing and your experiences?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I could take that. Yeah, that could take some time, but I'll start with the name. So I'm born in '78, so Jennifer was one of the most popular names at the time. So
Yes, it
that's how
was.
that's how I got this. And my last name is just another boring kind of nondescript name, Jennifer Scott. So I've never had a big identifier name, which
Mhm.
I can say, whew, Lord, not just in publishing, but in the business world, I don't think people always expected me to show up when I did.
Mhm.
Before we were
Mhm.
a lot more, before you could find out exactly everything you wanted to know about someone on the internet before you ever met them. I
Yep.
don't think people were expecting me to show up. Um, Especially when I would come with the credentials that I did and the experience that I did, and that was just the corporate world. When you get into
And
public, hmm?
just to interrupt you, and you're very eloquent.
Yeah, you get. I get that. I get that a lot, and it's again like there are people who they just don't see me coming. And in some ways, this has been good. Like I remember, for
Yeah.
example, when I was teaching, when the very first time that I walked into the very first class I ever taught, first time that I walked into the door, I didn't even walk into the door. The students were outside the classroom because the other class hadn't been let out yet. And I saw my students standing there, and I just said, let me just go ahead and introduce myself. And I just started shaking hands. Hi, I'm Dr. Scott. I'm your professor. Hi, I'm Dr. Scott. I'm your professor. Some of them, it was one of those things where you blink and you miss it. It was that surprise. Almost all of them looked surprised. Every last one of them
Mhm.
looked surprised. And then I will say this, there was a young Black man that was there, and there was this kind of a flash of, you, like in it. And I've always said that was, out of all the years that I taught and everything I ever did, that's still my favorite moment, because it was I wasn't expecting you in a good way.
Yeah.
And when you think, maybe I can't go into that kid's mind, but you think for a moment, did I just open his horizon just this
Yeah.
little bit? Because I'm probably the first
Yeah.
Black professor, but I might have been the first Black teacher he ever had, let alone the first Black
Yeah.
professor he ever had in college. So sometimes the surprise is good, because we see each other out there and we say, oh, I see you. And you have that feeling. And that's a
Mhm.
lot how I can explain how it feels to interact and link up with other Black authors in our space, because
Mhm.
it feels like sometimes the internet can make you feel like you're in competition with everyone and everyone else is writing the same thing. But when you look at publishing as a whole, when you go to Barnes and Noble and
Mhm.
look at the shelf, faces on the cover of these books that look like ours are very small, and the
Yeah.
writers who write them, almost everyone knows each other, because you have to, because again, you need that support, because yeah, especially in romance, because you are dealing with ideas of beauty, standards
Mhm.
of eloquence, standards of
Mhm.
what is attractive, what is sexually attractive, what is acceptable, and all of that gets tied up in race. Especially
Mhm.
especially where we are, especially in the climate that we are in. So, and I came along, which gets into so much bigger thing. I came along writing my romance post 2020, and
Mhm.
2020 publishing saw a huge boom. Obviously they were greatly affected by the events going on, and they did what a lot of companies do, which is this knee-jerk reaction of we now want all the black, we want to hire all these black people, now we want to snatch up all the black books. And so there was a huge wave that came in, and all of these, all right, and all these authors are amazing, they were there the whole time, but
Yeah.
no one was looking for them. All these writers come in, but then a couple of years go by and it's not trendy. And because publishing also is all about trends, it's just not quite so trendy anymore. So there's a little bit more of an uphill
Mm.
climb that I think some of us newer authors now are having to go through, because there was publishing has kind of started closing up that door, because this is, again, we're facing, it's an uphill battle. It's frankly, it's an
Yeah.
uphill battle what we have to deal with, especially in this genre. And it's funny, I could say easily, you talk about what it's going to be like if you want to do young adult, or you want to do thriller, or you want to do horror. uh Still highly underrepresented. So it's almost like, what are you going to do?
Mm.
All you can do is just keep writing the stories that you believe are important to you, and understand that, much like that student who saw me and was like, you're my professor, someone else is going to pick up your book and say, I oh, that's me. Someone's picking up your
Mhm.
book and they're saying, I thought I was the only one, as a multiracial person having this experience, and or someone else
Mhm.
wanting to live overseas and wondering like, oh, I thought things would be better if I lived in Sweden. Why am I getting treated like, or something like that? Like, but they're reading your book and
Right.
they're seeing themselves, and that's what you
Right.
want.
Yes. Yes. Well, I saw myself in both of the characters in The Favor, so I'm looking forward to whenever your book gets published, which I know that's been a process, so we don't have
It's
to
a
go there.
slog.
It's
It's
a
a slog.
slog.
That's what it does.
It's
Yeah, and
it's
it's
a
it's it's what
slog
it is, what it
from
is. It's and it's also, I love to say, again, one of the best things about having the community around you, you're not alone. The internet always is going to
yeah.
make you feel like everyone's getting a book deal but you, everyone's getting an agent but you, everyone's got a big book launch but you. No, there are so many
Mhm.
writers out there who are struggling at all the different stages of publishing, indie and traditional. And everyone's working hard. And even with traditional, when you see someone getting what could be considered a lucky break, it's just like, oh honey, the slog's coming. It just matters when you get the
Right.
slog. You might get an agent fast but you'll be on sub forever. You might get your book deal fast, but then they give you a big fancy advance, your book doesn't sell that well, then you don't get the big fancy advance the second book. Like, there's so
Right.
many parts that are difficult. So it's like, it's so good to just have friends around you, because people get it and they get how hard it is, and you can encourage each other, you can help build each other up, and you just go through this fun little process not alone.
Fun little process, not alone. You know, I'm so glad that you brought this up, and actually it's one of the reasons why I've created Golden Creatives Talk. It's actually because at some point, well, because I had gone through a little bit, only 20 rejections worth of that querying
That's
process
a lot.
some, gosh, 10 years ago. And I realized like how difficult that was. And I kind of like started to do the math, like querying agents, and then they're going to be querying publishing houses. Like, who knows how long this is going to last? And as I was writing this book that I've just actually, I'll say I completed it um, in like February, March, and I've
Mhm.
been tweaking it ever since. And only in August was I like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just set myself the date of self-publishing. And actually, it was at that point. It was sometime over the summer where I was like, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go traditional with this because I feel like it's urgent and it needs to get out there.
Mhm.
It's not
Yes.
fiction, it's not creative, like it's a bit more of a timely sort of thing. So that's
Mhm.
when I was like, I'm gonna go indie with this. And I did not realize all the moving, like I didn't, if I had done the math, I probably would have just put it all in a drawer and said, okay, I did that. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
So
It's a
now
lot.
I'm suckered in. It's a lot. And that's just the like getting the book formatted, getting a cover, getting your ISBNs, registering the book, right? Like there's so many steps that like you really don't realize when you're holding a book and enjoying a book, supposed to notice. And then at some point I was like, oh, I need to market this.
Yes. Oh, the marketing. Yes. Yes.
And I've heard that even if you are traditionally published, that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be flinging crazy money at marketing your book for you. That the author also has to do quite a lot of legwork, which leads to the birth of Golden Creatives Talk, which you're watching right now, hopefully, if we got the live stream to work. But it also leads to my next question for you, which is related to your TikTok sensational, insane growth. So tell us all about that. Was there some serious marketing strategy going into that, or was it all by accident? Did you go viral by accident?
And I hate to say that because some of it was by accident, but social media is also a lot like publishing in the sense that you can do all the work, but there's a luck and timing factor to it that that's just how it is. Like I hate that, but that's how it is. And now I can say that officially, having now been on both sides of something that I tried and am still navigating versus something I didn't try that hard, and things suddenly just started happening. Although if you talk to my friends, they'll always say, Jennifer, you've always been good with social media, and with the exception of Instagram. For some reason, I cannot crack Instagram's code. I don't know what it is. I think it's funny. I've cracked it in professional settings, jobs, different places I've worked where I've been on the social media team. Yes, completely double people's followers, not a problem. My own brand, but regardless, it's a weird timing. It's a weird timing and unluck thing. With TikTok, I hopped on there when I was playing around with the idea of having a communications consulting company. And so I was playing around with that idea. And so I hopped on there and just did some communication videos, and they were doing meh. And then I also loved all the lip sync video. Like I'm not dancing on there, but I love the lip sync videos where we could just grab songs and lip sync it, because I literally have an album sitting right here that I bought yesterday. Stevie Wonder's in Square Circle. It's got Part-Time Lover on here, which was immediately why I snatched it. But like I love music. And so I was singing along, and I started doing some goofy Gen X stuff, and then I remember this is where the strategy did come in, though. I was following some people who talk about TikTok strategy, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But one guy said, if you really feel like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, I want you to do an audit of your content. Look at all your content and see what's performed well, what didn't, and then capitalize on what's went well. And I was like, okay, PhD researcher brain comes popping back out. I made a whole spreadsheet on my whiteboard up here, all my videos. Here are all the ones that did over 400 views. What did they all have in common? And when I put them all together, it was all the ones about music and all the ones about being Gen X. And I said, well, let me just do a couple more like that. And I tell you this, maybe within a couple days, I had that one big video. It was a video that I was sitting right in my living room, and I was just like, you know what why Gen X likes TikTok, because it reminds us of flipping through channels, because even though we're the generation originally that only had 3 or 4 channels to flip through, you never knew, unless you had your TV guide with you, or you had the newspaper that had the TV listing, you didn't always know what was on TV. So every time you flipped your channel, you were getting something, you didn't know what you were going to get. Whereas now no one flips channels anymore because we have DVRs and got like, you're not even watching live TV anymore. You're only watching things that you want to watch. And I said, TikTok is back to the day of just flipping channels and seeing what's going to spark your interest. And that video, can't remember what the numbers were. I cannot remember what the numbers were now, but they're well over 100K in views. And it wasn't just the views, it was the comments. It was so many comments, and they were all from people born between 1980 and 1965. And that was when, so it was the moment of realizing I not only found content that resonated with people, I found an audience. And that's what you're looking for when you're looking in social media. You're looking for that audience. It's either going to be Black women, or it's going to be people of this age, or it's going to be people who are artists, or people who do makeup or something. You found your art, and then you get that traction and you start making more content in it. TikTok recognizes you're making that content, and its algorithm is so ridiculous that it is going to keep feeding your content to that audience. And it just, if you do it well, and again, luck and timing, and you're consistent, it actually just starts to snowball. And that's what happened with me.
Uh-huh. Well, it sounds awesome. Well, I actually went and checked out a few of your YouTube shorts, because I think you content pushing to YouTube, right? And first of all, what I loved about talking to you, even before I checked out your YouTube shorts, is and your shorts. No, I've actually never seen your shorts, but that's okay. Is how, like, you took me down memory lane, right? So it's exactly what you're talking about. It's identifying the evidence and understanding the psychographic elements of, like, what do all these people have in common. And there were two that grabbed me, and you actually happened to be talking about biracial people. So in the first short that I saw, of a grocery store, and you were like, you know that you're Gen X when you hear Lenny Kravitz in the grocery store, like over the, what did you call that? That music station.
Yeah, that,
right?
whatever, that PA system, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first, and I'm like, holy shit, that means Lenny Kravitz is officially old. Like, to me, he was just a really hot rock star, and like,
and
he's
still
in my
is.
mind,
like,
he's forever.
Rocking
He is really hot.
Six-pack. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still really hot, but he was young and hot. Now he's old.
Now he's old.
Or what I would have, as a teenager, I would have considered him old. I'll just be honest. Like, at the age of 15, he would be old. I mean, I'd be like, yeah, he's good looking, but he's old. And the other was the Cree Summer reference. And I was like, I love Cree Summer. I loved A Different World, like, because of her. I totally. Anyway, and I was like, wow, like, these are my people. So yeah, that's a whole generation. And just now in this conversation, I realized, so I guess it's a culture thing, and a culture thing related to generation. You made a reference to TV Guide. Do they still even print out a TV Guide for our younger viewers?
I do not believe TV Guide is even a thing anymore. And I mean, they had much fewer channels to work with back then. So they could tell you what was going on all week, and then they could have all the interviews, and there was so much content. Now there are countless channels. I mean, even if you're just doing, if you have like YouTube TV or Hulu or one of those that lets you have like the regular broadcast channel, all the cable channels, then all of the different streaming networks. And then you've got streaming networks that kind of operate like television, like apps like Pluto and Plex, or those where they have content running all day that you can tap in and tap out of. There's just too much content now to to be able for anyone to be able to keep up with and tell anyone what's happening in a timely fashion like you could in 1985.
And here I am trying to give people notice of a live stream that I'm launching. And it's like, you know what? Let's just spring it up on people.
Yeah. 100%. That's why when you told me, I was just like, yeah, we just do this. And then the beauty of this is that we can take this, you can chop it up, you can make tons of different content just based off of what we've done here already. And that's the beauty of what our generation has now seen. We used to be tied to, okay, Different World is coming on at 8:30 Thursday night,
That's
NBC.
Right.
If you don't catch it and you didn't put the tape in the VCR, made sure the tape was clean, made sure someone didn't tape over it, made sure it programmed the VCR properly, because it was never programmed properly, to have it set up to tape the 30 minutes, no one interrupted, because that would used to happen too. If someone turned on the TV and then switched the channel, you'd literally watch your show go away, and all of a sudden you're watching sports, or you're watching The Simpsons or something. We were tied to things that were live. It had to happen live. Whereas now, the only thing you're tied to live basically is sports. And even sports, I was falling asleep during the game last night, and I was like, nah, I can go to bed and literally go to take a nap, wake up, hop on TikTok, and I will see the last 2 minutes of the game. That's how much we're not tied to live events anymore. So that's why I'm like, we can take this and slice it up, do whatever we want with it.
Thank you, because I flubbed on the whole live stream thing, I think. Yeah, so we'll pretend that it was live, and just keep posting it over and over again.
Not a problem at all.
Yes. So this is Gen X being live.
Yeah, pretty much. I was excited I could get anything working the first time, because I always feel my age when I start doing anything like this. And I especially felt it when I was working with younger people, because they would just be like, oh, for example, we're on Restream right now. I haven't used Restream since my last job. And I remember one of the 20-something not audio techs, but he was like one of our producers explaining to me how it worked. And I was like, I feel like a dinosaur. Like someone explaining to me how this Restream works. I feel like a dinosaur. And I still didn't get it after he explained it to me.
So, social media, since we're on the topic. You're a mom.
I am.
Of a couple kids.
Two
and
kiddos.
I think they're young, right? They're still
little. Everyone's under 12. I'm one of the rare Gen Xers who, when you have kids, most Gen Xers, if they did have kids, their kids are older. Some of my friends my age have kids in college already, but I got a later start for reasons that made sense at the time. Now that I'm in my late 40s, now that I'm going through perimenopause and someone else is going through puberty, it's like, wow, this is just a collision of crazy in one house. This was a terrible idea. But no, I got two grade older elementary school kids.
Okay, so but then it's actually interesting, because you did touch on, as Gen X, we actually have lived kind of like two information ages, sort of like my phone is tethered to the wall in the kitchen, so like any conversation I'm having is within ear of people that I don't want to hear what we're talking about.
Yes.
Then we evolved to the whole like wireless phone that was still semi-tethered, and then obviously you had to kind of like be within radio wave shot of like the mother station of your wireless phone, etc.
Oh yeah.
And then the television shows with the TV guides, the whole everything. And I remember as a kid thinking that like the Jetsons' day of video calls or streaming live was like this fantasy far into the future, like hovercrafts, are like now it's almost like, I think there even are some rudimentary hovercrafts
I
already
believe
being
so.
invented as we speak.
Yep.
So all of that to say that we also saw the advent of social media. You know, in fact, I remember I was actually one of the early invites to Facebook by a high school classmate. I was in college at the time, and they were like, "Hey, there's this thing called," and I'm like, "Yeah, but we've got each other's emails. Like, why do I need to?" You know, like we wrote each other letters to get our emails. Why are we now talking about like this other place? But okay, I'll play.
Yep. Yes.
So we've gotten to see sort of like the evolution of social media to kind of where it is today, which is like it is like the other, I don't know, additional form of communication. Of all the forms, it's like just this other beast.
Yeah.
So your children, you've kind of seen probably your generation of mothers who've had children previous to you, and some of them have opted to include their children in their evolution of social media, and others have been very guarded about, like, don't mention my kids' names when we're chatting on Facebook, etc. So where do you fall on that social media spectrum as
Ooh,
far as
that's
your
a
kids are concerned?
It's interesting. I guess I do lean a little more conservative. I never really thought about it, but now that when I look on TikTok and I see people who their kids are literally part of their social media team, I see that. I just know, again, I'm like, as for me in my house, we're not, I'm not doing it. I don't do it. My kids have, I think you've seen maybe a half of my kids' head in a video at best, on all of the platforms. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I believe my husband does have, there are pictures of the kids on his Facebook. I don't think he's public anymore. I think I fussed at him about having a public profile. And so I think for me, there's a little bit of a privacy thing. This is what it is. I think there's two things going on here. And part of this is very Gen X. Now the idea just came to me. Number one, I feel like Gen X, we are the generation that saw what happened to child stars. And we saw what happened to children that got exposed. We saw the full timeline of the Coreys and of
Yeah, the
Michael
Lindsay
Jackson,
Lohans,
Lindsay Lohan,
the
all of them,
Britney
like all of these
Spearses,
different
yeah.
people who, and it's not to say, it's the John Benet Ramsey type of things. Like we just saw, I think, putting children in the spotlight done so badly, and we saw the most extreme tragic cases, and I don't think it affected everyone the same way, but I just know for myself, I just was very skittish about it, because I didn't like the idea of just having the kids out there and anyone can see them, and then anyone can take those videos and do whatever they want with them. And I just didn't there was something about that just didn't settle right with me. I just didn't want them to have that kind of spotlight. Two, is also, and this gets into the racial aspect. I'm married to a white man. My girls are biracial. As you talk about Cree Summer, literally, I told a friend of mine yesterday, because we were talking about hair texture and detangling, and we were talking about, okay, well, what's their texture like? And I said, basically Cree Summer, that's what my youngest daughter looks like. My daughter looks like a very young Cree Summer, almost down to the skin tone, down to the hair texture. Everything about her looks exactly like Cree Summer. And it was understanding that I had biracial children and understanding sometimes how biracial children are perceived in media and perceived as with the lighter skin and the curly hair, and how sometimes people have fetishized this. People get like, it's just people will take them and almost kind of set them apart in just in ways that I just was never comfortable with. I did not want anyone looking at my kid. Oh my gosh, they're so adorable. What are they? And I just started getting slimy feelings. And I was just like, you know what? I have great kids. They're beautiful kids. My youngest in particular, I've always described her as she's living a Broadway play in her head. Like she loves to sing, she loves to dance, she's having fun. She's always having fun in her head. She's very outgoing, very fashion. She would be fantastic on TikTok. That's why it will never happen under my watch, because it's just like, sorry, not happening. I'm not having people taking your videos and doing God knows what with them. I'm not having, like, if you want to, when you get older, and we'll discuss whenever that day will come, because already my oldest child, she's like, everyone in class has a phone but me. And I'm like, yeah, but it's happening so fast, so I'm not going to be able to fight it. I'm not going to be able to keep them off of the stuff forever, because this is just the generation they're being raised in. But I will slow it down as much as I can.
Do you have enough rubber underneath your sneakers? Like,
I don't. I can't. Oh gosh, we just, I don't. You know, what's funny is that we live in Florida. I can't tell you how many times people have told us, you're so close to Disney, you should get the girls involved in Disney stuff. I went, absolutely not. No. Again, I have seen what this type of life can lead to if it's successful. And my thing is, like, that success doesn't look like anything I want for my girls or our family. It can be just so dangerous and so terrible. So no thanks. They're gonna have to live in their own little worlds for right. I just want to keep them kids for as long as I can.
Yeah, just hearing you talk about it, I was a biracial. I'm a biracial Gen Xer, in case nobody's noticed from our conversation. So we're very youngins, playing in the neighborhood streets of mixed race. And I don't think my mother understood really sort of like what you were referring to, racial fetishization and those types of things. But I do know that, like, she too wanted us to be kids as long as possible. So even when I would say, like, oh, I want to be part of, like, the community, because there's a community center nearby, like, I want to be part of the community play. And she's like, those are a bunch of strangers. We live in Virginia, which is like, I don't know how comfortable I feel about, like, appearing as a white woman in a white community with a Black husband and brown children. And so a lot of the, like, she actually also shielded us from, like, let's say potentially uncontained situations. I guess, which would be like the closest version of a social media situation. So we definitely, like, if we were kids now, like, she would be the mom who would be like, no, you're not having a phone. Like, you can, if you really need to, you can ask the headmaster, the principal, to use their phone, memorize my number and call me. Like,
Yes, there are so many ways to still get a hold of it. And I also don't like their friends having access to them 24 hours a day. And not so much just their friends, but all of their, because it's like, we know how bad bullying was and everything when we were kids, but then you only had to deal with it if you were in the neighborhood. Then it was when you were in the neighborhood with that kid. If that was school, it was only an issue at school.
That's right.
Now it
was contained
24 hours a day, and it can be contained. And that's exactly as you said. Social media is just so uncontained in the ways people can have access to you. And I just am not. I was just like, I'm like, you're just not. And I hate saying these things to them because I feel myself being hypocritical, because our parents had a shorter leash on us. But it was. I'm like, stuff can happen now that. A video can be taken of you, like something can happen to you when we were kids and it stayed in your neighborhood or it stayed in your school.
Right.
Something can happen
and
to
in
you
the
now.
Past.
Yes, and in the past, and completely forgotten. Now someone in China knows that you fell on your face and did such and such. Like it can be worldwide, and it can follow you around forever.
Forever. Yeah. Oh, thank goodness that, like, things that have happened to me in the past stayed there. Yeah. Now, not so much.
Yeah, now
Ooh,
it's so much more
okay.
you gotta be so much more careful, so much more careful now, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't wanna be anti and have this kind of neo-Luddite, thing of we're not gonna do this and that, but I just wanna make sure that I'm constantly telling them that they have to come to this stuff with respect, with a certain level of
Yeah.
respect in the sense of this is a danger. This can be great and fun and wonderful and eye-opening. It can also be very dangerous. It can also expose you to things. Like even as good
Yeah.
as this algorithm is, I've been scrolling and caught something like, whoa, why did I see that? And the algorithm's just
Right.
kind of like flinging stuff out at you. So
Right.
it just, as long as it's treated with, as long as it will, like I try to just tell them, as long as we treat this with respect and we try to be as open with each other as possible so that everyone knows what we all know what we're looking at,
Right.
we're fine.
Yeah. And at some point, like that at some point the child starts to demonstrate the ability to reason their way through their situations.
Yeah.
And at that point, we can have an adult conversation
Yes, we can have
about
start
the
and I'm
boundaries. Right.
yep.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
almost at the point where I can start having those conversations with my oldest one. She's starting to get there, so we can have a little, just starting to, but it's still, that
Hmm.
moment is so hard to tell. But
Oh,
it's
no.
tough. It's tough. I have no desire to see what the kids will have to keep dealing with as things just keep opening up and opening up and opening up for them. But also on the positive, their worlds can be so much bigger. They can
Yeah.
understand, they can learn things that we had to look at an outdated encyclopedia to learn about. They can
Yeah.
find other kids as weird. Like if you are the kid and you think you are the weirdest kid on the planet, no, you're not. Hop on the
You'll
internet, you
find
will
someone.
find a
Yeah.
tribe. You'll find your people.
Yes.
You will find out that
Yes.
there's 5 people in, maybe even in your neighborhood, that are just like you, that like all this cool, interesting stuff that you like that the other kids don't. And it can make
Yeah.
you feel less alone. So there's, pros and cons.
You're totally right. And actually, you've come full circle with our interview from you can find your author tribe and be there for
Yes.
each other as you're on your writing journeys.
Yeah.
And you can also find just your other weirdness tribe and, just socialize in that way.
Yeah.
We are
It's
at the
beautiful.
top of our call. This has been an
Well,
inspiring conversation, Jennifer. Should I call you Dr. Jennifer? I feel like I should.
I accept all, since
Yeah,
I
you're
haven't been
you're
teaching in a
so
long time. No one calls me Dr. Jennifer anymore. So whenever anyone does, it's like, oh, it's suddenly like these are worth something on the wall again. Yay.
yeah. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother conversation, which maybe we
Uh,
can bring up in a future chat. So tell our listeners before we close where they can find you
Goodness.
and connect with you.
Goodness. Well, I am the website that I am still using at the current moment is jenniferelizabethconcepts.com. That has mostly collection. And what I love about that is that that's got links to pretty much everywhere. Also, my TikTok is pretty much almost the hub for everything these days, just because that has the most eyeballs. So that my handle is Dr. Jennifer Scott on there. So that was where you'll find links to my website. You'll also find links to this and to the anthology, to the literary magazine that I was put
That's right.
in, as well as obviously all the craziness that I get into on TikTok with talking about Gen X things and whatnot. And pretty much, yeah, like I say, from there you can pretty much find me everywhere else.
Cool. And you can find this live. If it didn't go live, you will find it again on beyondborders.substack.com. And this will also be going on YouTube at Golden Creatives Talk, all one word. So I think with that, we will love you and leave you. Thanks so much, Dr. Jennifer, for joining us and chatting with us and sharing all the things. I look forward to another conversation sometime soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Good.